right. Jackson, you asked for it. And of course, it's one of the bigger games of the week, and certainly in the Pac 12 because Utah's coming off a win at the Coliseum as a 7-point dog with a backup quarterback, of course, with Cam Rising most likely out for the season for Utah. But we know Utah football, they're going to show up and be fundamentally sound, and they're a tough team, just like their coach. So they win against USC for a third consecutive time over the last 2 years. Oregon has been playing well, of course, and they travel to Utah, an extremely difficult place to play, one of those tough places to play across college football, Rice-Eccles Stadium. The Ducks, a 6.5 point, I think I messed that up. They're a 6.5 point favorite, correct?
Yes. Yes,
On the
road
road
favorite.
at Utah. Yes, I mixed up the plus and minus. So the Ducks, a 6.5 point favorite at Utah.
Yes, and I'll be right. You would have been right this summer though. The look ahead line this summer is Utah minus 1.5. So the initial line this summer, a bettable line at some of the advanced books were Oregon was going to be the dog here. So this is over a touchdown adjustment. Obviously, the quarterback situation has a lot to do with that. With that said, though, Utah's been dealing with that all season. They're still 6-1 straight up. They beat Florida. They beat UCLA. They beat USC last week. Their only loss came at Oregon State. So this is a really good Utah team, just a year in and year out, one of the best coached teams in college football. But they are offensively challenged this year. They're averaging just barely over 5 yards per play. Oregon's averaging 8 yards per play, so a substantial offensive edge. I think you can make a case that the under and Utah are somewhat correlated here. I can't imagine Utah wants to get into a shootout. I know they won a shootout last week, 34-32 against USC, but USC is a below average defensive team. Oregon is substantially better. With that said, there is some value, though, I think, with Utah at plus 6.5. Would like to get to plus 7 or more, which is a very key number, obviously. My database simulation, 10,000 games run through the database, on average has Oregon winning by just 4. And that does not factor in the altitude, the thin air, which is always tough on these West Coast teams as well. Do worry a little bit about Utah after that shootout against USC, if they're a little fatigued as well. So we'll call it, kind of negate the altitude edge. I'll call both teams fatigued. And that also could hurt the under a little bit because, the altitude and fatigue can obviously hurts the defense a little bit more, in my opinion. But I lean towards Utah here, plus 6.5. Would like to get plus 7 or more. And some other simulations I run, projections, a few of them have them winning outright, and several of them have them winning the yardage edge as well. So I think this is definitely a live underdog, even though, as you and I talked about earlier, we both like Oregon. They're a really good team. Another really tough spot for the Ducks, though, having to go to Utah and at Washington earlier this year.